My name is Trip Gorman, and in this episode of Semilla.VC, I sat down with Daniel Ospina, co-founder of Pygma, where he's developing their venture capital arm of their accelerator. He's a founding member of Farfalla, a Latin American investor ecosystem with the goal of sharing deal flow and building community around Latin American startups. He's also an angel investor and previously held roles at Scala and Endeavor Colombia. In this episode, we discussed Pygma's accelerator process and their structure, how Miami is neutral ground for all communities within the broader umbrella of Latin American VC and tech, and Bogotá as a tech city and how it's grown in the last 5 years. We also discussed why Daniel is not a fan of building in stealth mode. We discussed all this and more in this episode of Semilla.VC. Daniel, could you start by telling the audience a bit more about your work history up to and including founding Pygma?
Yeah, of course. So thank you very much for the invitation. Really happy to be here. Just to go through and give a little context, I'm from Colombia. I'm from Bogotá. I studied here business management in a school that's only for business managers. It's called CESA. There I tried a lot of things. I had a dropshipping e-commerce, and I had an HR tech I founded with some of my fellow colleagues or students at that time. And we did really good with both projects. I got to learn a lot about startups and starting a business actually and generating some revenue. It didn't scale quite as we wanted to. That's why I ended up saying I'm going to focus all my energies in Endeavor, which was my next step in college, was working at Endeavor, which is this large entrepreneurial network that connects founders with opportunities like mentors or investors or different programs. I was there in the selection team. So my job was basically to talk to entrepreneurs and decide what programs were a correct fit for them, which like unconsciously was giving me expertise in the VC side of selecting startups and actually knowing what to look for, and helped me develop this eye that got a little more developed once I joined their Endeavor's course for angel investors. And I decided to start like using this acquired knowledge and starting my angel investor career. I did 2 investments that way, which I ended up rolling into the fund I created. I created a micro VC called Scala. Scala ended up doing 12 investments with an average ticket of $25,000, which was great for me to be able to raise that capital and actually learn how to structure a fund in Colombia. Even though it was small, it taught me a lot of lessons, And that's when I met Pygma. They are actually an accelerator. They are accelerating companies. They have accelerated over 70 companies up to date. And they wanted to do a fund. That's when they met me and they said, well, why don't we work on this together? And the way we found to do this was actually them acquiring all the portfolio and acquiring me. And that's when I joined the founding team, as you said.
Could you tell us more about the model of Pygma, especially the first cohort, how that went? Just tell us about how it works and for the people who aren't maybe familiar with the whole operation.
Yeah, Trip. Thanks for that question. So to clarify it, Pygma has 2 products right now. One is called the Acceleration as a Service, which is going to change names eventually to Founders Camp. And it's basically a membership product where startups don't have to give up equity, and they subscribe to a monthly recurring payment for three months. And after that, the payment decreases to giving them access to the lifetime of content we are generating. But those 3 initial months are super dedicated to accelerating them. And they have 3 main routes they can choose from, or they can choose them all if they want to play around with the membership. But it's basically a validation track, a growth track, or a fundraising track. So that's the 3 tracks we are doing right now. That's the part of the Acceleration as a Service, soon to be Founders Camp. The other part, is the batch. As you said, we did a batch of 17 startups. It was our first batch. It was a 12-week program, and it was an awesome experience. The founders were really happy. And overall, it went really good because we had our demo day on Stonks, which is this fundraising platform. And we had $8.1 million in interest from potential investors for the 12 companies we took to the demo day. So really happy with that, and the founders are really happy as well with the overall progress.
What type of startups or founders would be best suited to apply for Pygma's accelerator cohort or the founder camp? What sort of phenotype is best?
Yeah, so we are looking for tech entrepreneurs in Latin America that are building scalable solutions. Here in Latam, we have a huge advantage, which is that excluding Brazil, we speak Spanish, so we have a very big market, 600 million people that goes there. So it's really huge. And we're looking for those solutions that can scale not only within the borders of a country, but can reach some regional scalability. So basically that tech founders in Latam with great courage to build a startup, great resilience, preferably some traction. But if they don't have traction, we look for that a special X factor that some founders have, like they've founded previous startups or they worked, I don't know, at a bank for 8 years and now they're going to launch a fintech solution. So we do have exceptions where we receive some earlier stage ideas, but the founder needs to be a little bit more advanced in his or her career.
And what's the most common mistake you see founders or startups making in Latin America today? And how should they solve that issue?
I'd say two main issues. One is they spend too much money to launch a product because they think, oh, it needs to be perfect. I need to have the developers. I need to go into the market because my reputation is on the line. And you see this bad practices where they get charged millions of pesos, which is the currency in Colombia, which that would be like thousands of dollars for these products that end up being built and no one wanting to use them. So I really love the approach that Eric Rice proposes in the Lean Startup. And it's like, go out, try the product, talk to clients and start innovating with them and validating through data and learning quickly. So I think today there's no excuse to waste hundreds of thousands of dollars in building a product. You can build great products with no code. And I wish more Latin founders did this. And if I can, I will say a second mistake that's really huge here in Latin America, and is sometimes the scarcity of capital takes founders to look into some financing routes that are not as good for them. So the uncle that has money and says, hey, I'll give you $10,000, give me 20% of the company, and wrecks the cap table completely. And sadly, we see a lot of those cases where they haven't even raised a pre-seed round and they are already diluted 30%. So I think it's just overall startup education and knowing how's this route going to take you in time.
You tweeted, "I'm not a fan of being in stealth mode too long. Building in public wins every time." Could you elaborate on this tweet?
Yeah, I can. We actually started doing this at Pygma, and we've had awesome results to back it up. So we are streaming on Twitch, and we are showing parts of the team, like how we communicate with each other, some goals that we have, some problems that we have, and we receive very good feedback from founders or from people who want to know more about Pygma and potential clients. And I just think that the problem with doing a stealth startup is that you are like sort of locking the door with many people outside knocking. And if you spend too much time locked in, people are gonna just say like, okay, I'll come later. And they never come back. And it's like, you could have used that initial feedback and those initial clients to test the product, to learn from them quickly. So if we have two startups doing the same thing and one releases day 0 and just shows everyone what they are doing, and they start iterating and getting to know the clients, versus another one that, okay, they might be attracting great investors, they might be attracting some FOMO from people that want to know what they are doing, but the other one is way ahead in just testing the product and talking to clients. And again, that's my point of view, but that's what I prefer.
You're based in Bogotá. How would you characterize the current tech scene in the city, and how has it grown in the past 5 years? And then, if I may add a third little question on top of that, how would you compare it to other Latin American tech cities?
Okay, so one, I would say it's thriving. I consider Bogota is more connected, a lot more connected than before. One fun fact is in Colombia, the VCs were started really late. So in 2008, we had the first official venture capital firm, 2008. That's really late. So the tech scene isn't as developed as it could be. However, it is growing right now at an immense pace, and founders are starting to build a community, go to events. We just did an event like 1 month ago that had 300 people come into the event in real life. So it's great. I would compare it to other LATAM hubs. I think Mexico is a very strong one. City of Mexico, it's very strong hub, and I think at some point we need to find ways to just start connecting all these points in LATAM. One thesis I heard was that Miami was going to become this no man's land where all LATAM founders could connect. So there are many theories. I think it's great to see more ecosystems building, not only in Bogota, but in other cities like Medellin. We are seeing some tech hubs being created. So there's a lot to do, but again, I think it's coming. The region, I think it's underinvested, and sooner or later, more VCs will realize this and keep bringing that capital here.
I have to follow up on Miami. What are your thoughts on Miami?
Yeah, I actually went to the VC LATAM Summit, which was held in Miami, and it was awesome. It was awesome because it's, as I said, it's like this point where people say, okay, let's not go just to Mexico or to Colombia and bring all investors from LATAM there, because then the fight is like, who is hosting the event? Because they have like this home advantage. Miami is like, we're all visitors, we are all getting to know each other, and the relationships I got to build there were awesome. I think Miami has a lot of potential for Latin founders, Latin investors, for everyone.
Could you tell the audience a little bit more about your time at Farfalla?
Yeah, that's basically to give some context. I realized there were many funds being created in Latin America, and I said, why not just and also for me, it was like a selfish attempt for me to learn. And I said, why not bring all these emerging fund managers and many fund managers that have more experience to a group in WhatsApp? And I started with Alex from Lotus, which is a Mexican fund, and Felipe Cano from Linky Ventures, which is a Colombian fund. And we started just putting people in the group, sending the group chat invitation to fund managers, general partners, managing partners. And we now have 56 members. We meet once a month through a Meet or a Zoom call, whatever is available. We bring some startups just to share deal flow, and we bring a speaker that can teach us something. So last time we talked with Ali Jamal from First Check Ventures, and it was an awesome experience. And he is in the group chat, and we are bringing the members to speak and to learn.
What would you tell American VCs about investing in Latin America?
Well, I would say do it. I think it's a great moment for the region. We are starting to see founders that are more concerned with profitability. They have some valuations that are not as high as in the United States, perhaps in some cases. And the ecosystem is being built and being part of something that is under construction on a moment where it's rising. It's awesome, and I do think there is a very long way to go in Latin America. We have some countries that have a little head start, but that's why the opportunity is even larger, because there are countries that are doing things really good, like Brazil, Mexico, Chile, Argentina, and they are teaching us, and Colombia as well, and they are teaching other countries like from Central America, for example, how to do things and learn from the other founder mistakes. And we Latinos are really good at just being good at telling others what we are doing. So I think it's a great learning ecosystem, and it's definitely going to keep growing.
Could you tell the audience more about a personal angel investment you've made and why you made it and how that turned out?
Yeah, so I'll talk about my first one, which was actually thanks to Endeavor. I met them on what's called FOR, which is a first opinion review. and they are called Proliu. They are basically a software as a service company that automates some sending proposals, commercial proposals. They work with a lot of car manufacturers because they have a way to send like this commercial proposals in a massive way and track the consumer interest on real time, and they can see like spikes in interest or declines in interest. So you get these really personalized proposals sent massively. They've done great. They are expanding to Mexico, some US customers as well, Colombia. And it was my first investment, my biggest investment as well. And I met them through Endeavor. So I would say you can, as an angel investor, you need to take advantage of the things you have available. At that moment, I had not invested in any other startup. My only leverage was I worked at Endeavor. So definitely leverage your network. And I would say the best deals are coming from people you know, and people you are eventually going to make friends with. And they say, hey, I was looking at this company. Do you want to come in? So definitely be open to that experience. But for me, it was awesome and really good on, really bullish on Prodigy.
Could you tell the audience a bit more about your time at Endeavor Colombia?
Yeah. So for me, it was an awesome experience. It opened the door to tons of knowledge. At the beginning, I wasn't as involved in the startup world, and I had to learn a lot. The first thing I did was read Venture Deals. That book, I think it's like a Bible for venture capital, and it's essential, and you do have to read it. And it taught me a lot. And then I got to practice what I've learned from many of these books in real life, talking to founders and just learning a lot about what does an organization such as big as Endeavor value, which taught me a lot as well as an angel investor to start looking for those things. You know, the team, the founding team in the early stages, the scalability, the metrics, the unit economics, all that I had to learn through Endeavor. So it was a school for me, a 1.5 year school where I learned a lot about startups, mentors, connecting mentors to startups, seeing what type of mentor might bring more aid to a startup and in what stages. So awesome experience. And one last thing, I think it's the connections Endeavor has is a global network. They are already like in 40 countries, if I'm not wrong. So you get access to talk to people from all over the world, which is awesome as well.
I love it. Finally, I have to ask Peter Thiel's famous contrarian question with uniquely Semilla.VC twist. What important truth about Latin America do very few people agree with you on?
You know what? I would say maybe we will eventually get there. I think there are many doubters yet because the political ecosystem sometimes is so horrible here, and you get all these malpractices, and sometimes you feel like you're stuck in a time bubble where you can't escape. And some investors are like tired of that and say, nah, again, this politician or this thing happened in this country and it's going to go backwards. I think we are at a moment where we are going to eventually crack the code, and we're really close to doing that. So I think this time around will be the time where Latin America actually gets some of the biggest companies created. And I think the biggest companies from Latin America haven't even been created yet. So I would say that's something many people say, like, no, you already have the big companies created. You already have the big things that were going to happen. But no, I think that's an important truth.
I agree with you. I think the future is bright. Thank you so much for coming on the Semilla.VC podcast today. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Trip. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Semilla.VC. My name is Trip Gorman. Make sure to like and subscribe wherever you view this podcast, and also check out our newsletter, Dealflow LA, which can be found by going to dealflow.la.